leaders, including Mr. Major at their meeting in Copenhagen, have agreed to send more troops, money and equipment to protect Muslims in safe areas in Bosnia. They also agreed on action to try to encourage economic growth and to cut unemployment. Mr. Major was pleased that that didn't include what he called interference over social protection for workers. Our diplomatic editor James Mates reports from Copenhagen.
Late yesterday evening, and the well-choreographed unity of this summit was shattered by Germany's Chancellor Kohl. Urged on by a letter from President Clinton, he suddenly declared he wanted to give arms to Bosnia's Muslims. Even as the French president was trying to talk him out of it over breakfast, his spokesman was suggesting Europe turn its Bosnia policy on its head.
It could be perhaps right, and could be perhaps better, to give them the possibility to protect themselves.
Throughout the Bosnian War, Europe's primary aim has been to present a united front. But now the Americans have persuaded one of the 12 to break ranks. Urgent discussions followed, and the Germans brought back into line with a compromise that will reinforce safe areas for Bosnia's Muslims.
We have decided to provide troops and money in order that those safe areas are effectively guaranteed on the ground.
But none of those new troops will be British, and John Major was adamant that no new weapons will get to Bosnia.
Now is not the time to abandon negotiations and to adopt the Council of Despair which lifting the arms embargo would represent. Lifting the embargo would lead, I believe, to an even bloodier war.
But the Bosnian crisis was never meant to have dominated this summit. Unemployment was going to be the big issue in Copenhagen. The leaders did spend many hours discussing the jobless crisis in an atmosphere John Major described as refreshingly different.
We didn't waste a great deal of time on Euro theology. That was dispatched to the sidelines where, personally, I believe it belongs. It was a time in this discussion to get down to some brass tacks, for us to consider what might actually be done to help get Europe back to work.
But for all the talk, there's been little consensus on what has caused unemployment, and no decisions have been taken on how they might tackle it. It has been decided, though, that within 18 months, the 12 shall become the 16. With Austria, Finland, Norway and Sweden joining the EC at the beginning of 1995. One tangible achievement at least, on which Danish pipers celebrating the summer solstice can play out their country's presidency of the community. James Mates, News at 10, Copenhagen.
There was another shocking instance this evening of the way that people trying to live normal lives in Bosnia are being picked off in the civil war. 9 people, including 3 children, playing or watching a game of chess in the small Muslim town of Zenica, north of Vitez, were killed by a Serb artillery shell. British troops and ITN's David Chater got there 10 minutes later and witnessed the carnage.
It started off as just another routine day on patrol for the Light Dragoons, monitoring the ceasefire with their 2 scimitars, probing the front lines. Captain Charles Rennick and his men took time to collect the latest intelligence over Turkish copies with local commanders, finding out where his vehicles could safely go. Negotiations were successful. The patrol decided to investigate a report of a build-up of Muslim forces near Serbian lines. But there was a problem as the scimitars got closer to the front line. A fire broke out in the engine of the leading vehicle. They managed to tow it back to the Muslim town of Zenica. Help from the base arrived with a warrior for escort. The local Muslim commander suddenly appeared, appealing for help. A shell had landed only minutes before, yards away from them. Casualties were heavy. This is the sight that greeted the British troops when they arrived. A howitzer shell had landed in a suburb of the town, killing 9 men, women and children. They'd been playing and watching a game of chess in the quiet of the evening.
This is sick. How many rounds came down?
They blamed the UN troops for letting this happen. They said the shell had come from Serbian lines in the mountains near the town. But the British UN troops are powerless to intervene in this war. David Chater, News at 10 in Zenica.
Reports to come on News at 10. Poverty in South Africa, how white and black queue for food side by side. Same name, same style, but McEnroe Jr. isn't a winner. And Anne Heseltine talks about her husband's heart attack and his political future.
Do you know, frankly, to me, that it's just not important. I mean, he's my husband and I love him and I want him to get better.